and I explore how university with a stated commitment to GCE ensure its implementation within a range of courses and degree programs. And then obviously ask faculties and program chairs and faculty directors to describe how they are preparing their students to be global citizens. In terms of literature, obviously I'm looking at United Nations, GINI, UNESCO, Oxfam, Warsavi, Global Competencies Certificate, and obviously I'm doing a thorough examination of the literature review in Global Citizenship Education. But what I wanted to make clear is that curricula has a really strong political connotation, and I like that, and I intake that, and I hope that through my findings I would also address some political issues on how global citizenship has been interpreted. In terms of research questions, how neoliberal, radical, and transformative conceptualizations of GCE reflect within identified universities, courses, programs, curricula. That's the first main question. And the second is, what are the distinct pedagogical approaches of GCE within identified courses, programs, curricula, according to teachers and program directors? Thanks for that. In terms of research methodology, I'm looking into a qualitative comparative case study approach anticipated by global survey. So the survey will look at these universities, about 21 at the moment, about 7 per country. US, you can see Boston University, Virginia Tech, and some others. York University, Oxford University, and some others. This is just a general survey. I give an example of what kind of programs I'm looking into. In Japan, for example, at Sophia University, the course is Democracy and Globalization. In the US, at Columbia University, Global Citizenship Education, this is a PhD course led by Dr. Gadelli, who wrote extensively about global citizenship education. And then, for example, in the UK, I'm looking at teaching and learning citizenship and global education. This is a module within an MA in global and international citizenship education. So I'm looking into these programs, trying to understand how they are conceptualized and what are the issues and the ideological approaches that they mention in research question number 1. But first of all, I want to share with you some issues. So lots of universities are trying to implement the concept of global citizenship, but this involves complicated policies, obviously well-organized courses, and good assessment practices to be in place. In the policy, the first issue is that many current prototypes of higher education would locate education primarily as a business. And as a result, universities are used for commercial purposes via marketing. The second issue is whether we should adopt a combination of formal and non-formal education. And Broadbent and Woodman would suggest that it's necessary to embed GCE in the usual works of the university through policy and programming. For example, social justice is a key part of the university vision and then reflected across university programs. And then the third aspect is concerned with linking programs to strategic vision. This is a very important point to my view. That is basically universities' intellectual, moral, and social missions in developing GCE needs to be translated into concrete and sustainable policy and practice. Perhaps this connects to the very topic of our conference. And the goal of GCE should be embedded within each of the university core functions, which is teaching, research, and service. The second main area where I found some issues is the program stream. So one of the major trends that emerged from a literature review examination is a problem with the location. I mean, in fact, it appears that the majority of well-structured global GCE programs are located in the United States, to a lesser degree in Canada, the UK, and Australia. And this, in a way, frames the very concept of GCE towards what we call the global north against the global south. Perhaps you were addressing this in your presentation implicitly. And then an additional major issue here, according to Schultz, is that and this is also very interesting. We will see later on the neoliberal approach what says about this. He speaks about this. Is that current programs of GCE have gatekeeping mechanisms that might privilege what is being defined as a global elite. Very, I believe, dangerous concept. Obviously, volunteering and study abroad programs are very expensive, so not all the students, unfortunately, can join them. So there is a real problem here with students that cannot afford to join certain programs, and therefore they feel excluded. So in this case, there is a danger. In fact, Zimak and Bursin would argue that individuals are constructed into global citizens through their ability to access elitist modes of attaining citizenship. GCE, therefore, is an identity available and granted to some, but not others. Big danger. And then eventually there is a problem with the assessment and evaluation where we talk about GCE programs. So the problems of contradictory outcomes of GCE should not be misjudged. And without some attention to evaluation, it is impossible to tell if GCE programs are successful or if in fact they are destructive within a wider global perspective. Which suggests that because of resource dependency, evaluation are focused from time to time on satisfying founders of the projects. That's another big issue. And then another challenge is of evaluating wider networked GC program approaches are actually results in a selfish kind of, I keep all the results for me. So the focus is on their own work, but they fail to find opportunities to actually come together, aggregate the individual successes that each researcher might obtain in the research. As, for example, we are doing today in a certain way, right? We are gathering together and try to share findings, so this is extremely important. However, there is a lack of this. We should definitely, and our network hopefully can, push this kind of, and contrast this kind of issue. And then finally, obviously, there is the ongoing challenge with what is GCE. And this obviously is further complicating the programmatic development. Therefore, the neoliberal, radical, and transformative are three discourses within which I explore discussions about GCE in modern university curricula. When we're talking about the neoliberal, what I named the elitarian approach, we are talking about celebrating the dominance of a single global market. We're talking about conceptualizing a global citizen as one who is successful participant in a liberal economy driven by capitalism and technology. It focuses on developing certain global competencies that would enable students to become really employable in a variety of cultural contexts. The main critique to this approach is that it is rooted in a taken for granted assumption that everyone has equal chance to compete and succeed in a global knowledge economy. For example, the example I was sharing with you, volunteering and study abroad programs are very expensive. No one can join. So in line with this critique, for example, Caruana described the notion, and again, of elite cosmopolitanism, identifying those who are only able to relate to transitory groups, unable to interact with groups in local and national contexts, describing them, and I like this, as moving within self-enclosed enclaves and translational networks. Finally, GCE education framed within a neoliberal perspective can perpetuate existing inequalities while encouraging university students to assume that their position of privilege is a natural position and a sign of success. So I'm very critical toward the neoliberal approach to global citizenship education. The radical approach presents globalization as an accelerated mode of Western imperialism that uses economic power for domination. Indeed, radical. A global citizen from these viewpoints understands how the system creates poverty and oppresses most of the world's population, and therefore has the responsibility to challenge state and corporate structure that increase the marginalization of countries in the global south. Higher education GC programs conceptualized from the radical perspective commonly include international service learning and local inter-service work. The critique to this approach is that the global relations are narrowly dichotomized. So the global rich democratic are the oppressor versus local pure and democratic oppressed, whereas the experience of oppression is far more complex. So I don't stand for the radical approach. Instead, I stand for the transformative approach that understands globalization as a cultural, social, environmental, and political, as well as economic, resulting in new patterns of inclusion and exclusion, as well as the erosion of north-south hierarchies. From this angle, a global citizen recognizes herself or himself as intricately connected to people and issues that cross national boundaries. Transformative approach acknowledges that there is the necessity to transform not only higher education institutions, and perhaps this is a very interesting point for me, but systems, but also personal and cultural mindsets. So it starts from us, within our students, within the teachers, and so on. And perhaps this is the point that distinguishes the transformative from the radical approach. It starts within us, and then it goes out to society. In other words, transformative GC has a clear focus on self-reflection, awareness, and action, which are all necessary for challenging global power structures. So it is both a skill set and a mindset. Schutz emphasized the importance of building relationships at the local and global levels, as well as creating spaces for dialogue and change to engage participants in action based on an understanding of their common demand.